Welcome back to the Tokyo Living Podcast. Thank you all for your feedback on last month's episode. It was great to be back on the mic, and I really enjoyed the chat that I had with our dietitian, Rebecca McCarroll. Today, we are going to be talking about fitness competitions and obstacle course races. To do that, we have one of our Club 360 coaches, Magnus Balander, who heads up the Spartan and Hyrox classes and events within the gym. And we also are lucky enough to be joined by Marie Aulund, who's joining us all the way from Norway, who was a much-loved member of the Club 360 community until she was relocated for work last month. But she participated in many of the Spartan races and also got into Hyrox as we started to introduce it into the program. For those of you who are long-time listeners of the podcast, just looking at the record, it was actually 3 years ago now that I spoke to Emily Downey, who was instrumental in starting up the Spartan races in Japan. And we talked about the history of these races and how they've become so popular in this country as well as most other parts of the world. And after that, we decided to introduce it and try to send some teams to Spartan events with participants from Club 360. So I might just start by getting you, Magnus, just to provide a little bit of introduction on yourself for our listeners.
All right, so as Sam says, I work here as a trainer, but also as a physio. Originally, I'm from Sweden, and I came here 5 years ago as part of the IOC team to help with the preparation for the Olympics. And then as I've been working here, I've been interested in getting back into competition because I used to do a lot of competitions in track and field back in the day. And when it was brought to my attention that the Spartan race was happening, it had been a little bit of a discussion between all of us, and I was happy to take on that when that came around as an opportunity here. And that's how we got started.
Yeah. And Marie, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Marie, and Sam said I trained at Club 360 when I was in Tokyo for 3 years, from 2021 until I left in August. Lucky enough to have trained with a lot of different trainers at Club 360 and done a lot of the classes, and including the Hyrox classes, and joined the Spartan races as well when they came around. Now I'm back in the ministry in Norway. So, but still in touch with the team in Tokyo. So hopefully I can join it again sometime.
You said you had experience with different trainers. Who was your favorite?
Do I have to say Magnus now that he's on screen?
I think so.
I started with Alan, who has since left, of course. So he was my real introduction to Club 360. So I have to give him props as well.
Fair enough. Magnus, you talked about how when we started talking about getting involved in Spartan that you were happy to take it on. What was your initial experience? I mean, can you remember the first race? What were you expecting? How was it perhaps different from your expectations? And also sort of leading a group of members from the gym. How was that in terms of participating as a participant, but also having to lead a group as well?
I think when I first thought about it, or I should say that the first one that we started with is Niigata, and I, of course, was expecting it to be tough, but that one will always be in my head as one of the tougher ones. And even though I've done many of them now, like the initial was like, oh wow, this is really rough. And it was also what I had expected. I had looked at many pictures, and they always promote like these are rough races. And then as I took it on, we all trained for these obstacles. And I think for me, having such objective obstacles, like in obstacle courses, or objective set goals to reach and clear was good for me, because it's what I've always worked with. And it's kind of what made me so excited about this, that I have a set goal of clearing these obstacles, not just me, but also training the people for it. Because we're all about fitness and health and longevity and so on. And it's something that I always value. But I also, as a former athlete, really appreciate having more graspable goals to go for as well.
Yeah. And Marie, can you sort of remember your first experience? And I guess what made you get involved in Spartan? What was it about Spartan that lit the fire for you?
Yeah, I've kind of from afar kind of wanted to join this kind of thing for years, but I hadn't had the fitness level where I thought I could do it. So when it came up that Club 360 was going to have a team, or it was possible to sign up for a team, I immediately knew I wanted to join. And I didn't really have any expectations. I don't think any of us did. And that was part of the fun when we did the first race in Niigata, is we didn't really know what we were going into. But we managed to kind of, get through it together and suffer together. And it was horrible weather, but it was a lot of fun. So I think it's just that added challenge at that point in my kind of fitness journey, I guess you could say. The Spartan races was something different, something new.
Yeah. And I guess for people listening that might not understand the structure of the races, what does a Spartan race look like? I understand that there's different distances that one can participate in. How does that all work? And if you're doing a race, what are you actually doing?
So during the race, it's a course that is different, as you said, different length. It's 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers, and 21 kilometers. And during the course, there will be obstacles that come up. Some obstacles are mandatory for you to clear, like crawl under some barbed wire, or clear a hurdle. Others are harder, like monkey bars and rings that you can fail. And if you fail, you get a penalty, either in forms of burpees or do a penalty loop somewhere else, which will increase the time it takes for you to finish the race. And some of the races are mountain races, and some of the races are more flat.
And I understand, Magnus, you recently participated in one of the longer races, the 20-kilometer race.
Yes, I did the 21, and I started with saying that the first one we did was Niigata, and that one was really rough. And we did the 5K Niigata. So this year I did the 21K Niigata, and it's probably one of the rougher things I've ever done in my life. I can almost say it might have been less prepared or so, but I don't even remember my survival week in the military when I did military training. I was suffering that much in general because I probably wasn't pressured as much some time. But yeah, it was very rough. Cramps, heat, and then clearing the obstacles on top of that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I guess Marie, you just missed out on having to do that one. Timing wise.
But I did a very flat version of it in Berlin when I just got back to Europe. So
oh, you did?
I've done the 21K now, but it was definitely nowhere near Niigata style.
Right. And so, Marie, what are some of the things that you've got out of doing the Spartan race that you sort of goes above what you would usually doing in your typical fitness training?
In terms of training, I think it kind of forced me to train differently, focus on cardio, general fitness that I hadn't really been focusing on as much. Definitely improved my running. As we kind of got more into joining more races as a group, I wanted to, not walk the races, so I wanted to run them. And so in terms of fitness, it's kind of changed the way I train, I think. And then as a race itself, like, it's a great kind of community builder. I think the group that we started with in Niigata last year was quite big, and many people decided to join again in December and February and so on, and new people have joined, and it's been really fun to kind of plan the trips out of Tokyo, and I also see it now that and now that I'm not in Japan anymore and not with that group, like the people I meet who do the same thing, it's a very open community and it's easy to meet people. Because you kind of end up in a situation where you challenge yourself and you motivate each other, and when you get through that together, it kind of builds a community and friendship, I guess. Yeah, so that's been the best thing for me.
And Magnus, I guess for you, do you think that it's also to other people that might have been competitive in sports when they were younger? I'm not saying you're old by any means, but maybe not being able to do track and field or even like very competitive field sports. This gives people an opportunity to push themselves and compete in something a little bit different.
Yeah, I do feel that that's what is happening in my own training, except for having like a little community in Club 360 as well, with goals together. In my own training, it's helped me to kind of train harder and work towards something more than just staying fit. For me, it can be hard of not having like a set goal or a set competition to have goals to work towards. So for me, it's helped me very much with that. And I think, especially since it is age grouped, with only 5 years per age group in between. So I've planned to start the Masters, but that's another 7 years away for me. So having something where I can still compete has been very helpful for my training.
Move on now to talk a bit about Hyrox. Magnus, what is Hyrox? I know it's sort of becoming a lot more popular now, particularly in Europe, and people are starting to hear about it. But I think a lot of people still not super familiar and not sure what it is. What's it all about?
So Hyrox is, as Marie said, like a hybrid fitness competition, which takes like normal everyday training things like running and rowing and lunges, and makes it into an endurance competition. So all of these things are very VO2 focused, which makes it very approachable for everyone. But it's basically 8 stations, and in between each station, you do a 1 kilometer run. So you start with a run, then you do, for example, the ski erg for 1 kilometer, and then you run, and then you do the sled, and then you run, and then you do the rower, and so on, with a bunch of different exercises in like lunges and burpees, so on. And so that's what Hyrox is.
And then there are competitions for this. How the competitions run, and I understand there's sort of bigger official competitions, but then there's also tests that individual gyms and facilities can perform as well.
Yes, so the competitions are set like bigger competitions where you can enter as open, where it's just you want to try it, test your fitness level, or you can compete in competitive, where you again compete in age group, similar to the Spartan, where it's 5 years per age group. And then you, when it comes to the smaller fitness test, there is the physical fitness test that we do here at the gyms, where you can, which is a shorter version. It takes about 20 minutes to do. Again, based on a run and burpees and push-ups, all these simple things that people can do, where you get a hum of what your fitness level are.
And Marie, what's maybe just talk a bit about the Hyrox classes you participated in while you were here, and I believe that you actually got to participate in an event when you went back to Europe.
Yeah, so I decided to join the Hyrox classes when they kind of came about, just something different, something new to do, and I thought it was going to just be with that, but I can't sit still. So when I joined the classes and realized, it was different than the regular group classes in that it was more intensive training. It felt like, at least, and it's quite measurable because it has a similar setup. And even now back in Norway, I can see it's similar. So you see improvements quite easily. So I enjoyed the different structure of the Hyrox classes. And then before I left, Club 360 had the physical fitness test that Magnus mentioned. So I was able to do that there, which is, Magnus said, takes about 20 minutes. Yeah, that's if you're really fast. And it can be up to about 30 or 40 minutes, I think. And it's a very intensive kind of pinpoint of where you should register, perhaps, in the Hyrox races. And then I actually did another one of those here back in Norway. And I could see the improvements over a couple of months, which was nice. And I've got my first Hyrox race in just over 2 weeks, in Milan, and another 3 actually signed up after that. So it's very much, it's very much. I think people get a little bit addicted to the whole setup, and the fact that it's the same all over the world, it becomes very easy to measure your improvements, kind of, and see where you are.
Fantastic. And Magnus, I understand that there's not been any Hyrox official events in Japan yet, but that is going to change from next year. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. So we haven't got confirmed the exact dates, but we have got confirmed that it's in February in Gunma here in Japan. That will be the first Hyrox in Japan. So we had before in Hong Kong and Korea and Singapore, but this will be the first one. And we're, of course, setting up a team to compete there as well. And me personally will also compete.
Fantastic. And I guess if people are looking at maybe joining in this type of thing, Marie, do you have any advice for people thinking about doing either Spartan or Hyrox or both?
Yeah, I guess for Hyrox especially, I think it's kind of easy to hear us talk about how intense it is, and the classes are harder, so to say, than the regular group classes at 360. But it's also, I find it to be very easy to adjust to your individual fitness level and how you're feeling that day or whatever. And so just go for it if you're interested. If there's anything that you have kind of been looking at, I would say to people, just try it once. My experience is that the people who try it once, they come back, because you are pushed to maybe you push to a level that you didn't know that you had, maybe, and then that accomplishment feels good. And then it's the same with the Spartan races. I think I managed to convince quite a few people to join at different points throughout the past year to join the races, and everyone was quite nervous about how it was going to end up being, or it's going to be too hard, maybe there's obstacles you can't do, but you join as a team in an open category. So it doesn't really matter how you do. There's no punishment for not being able to clear an obstacle, other than you should do burpees, perhaps. But everyone that I have managed to rope in has said afterwards that it was easier than they thought it would be, and a lot of fun, and join again later. So I would just say give it a go if you want a new challenge, something different. If you want to meet some nice people, go for it.
And that you do have to meet Magnus as well, but there are some nice people in the group too.
There are some nice people too.
And Magnus, from a coach's perspective, if people want to get involved, what should they do? And also, you did mention the Hyrox event next year. When would the next Spartan event be? And how would people get involved?
So if people want to get involved, they can contact us here at Club 360. Just reach out, say they're interested in Hyrox or Spartan, and they'll eventually meet me, unfortunately, as Marie and Sam said. And we'll get going from there. And as Marie said, I think it's a good thing if you're finding less motivation and need something new. And then when it comes to the new Spartan event, there is one in Okinawa. I'm not going personally, but we have a few people from the gym that is going to Okinawa. And in that event, you can actually do all 3 distances, 5K, 10K, and 21K, whichever you feel like. And then for next year, not just Hyrox, but we are also doing a trifecta roadmap where you do one of each distance every year. or in 1 year rather. So 5K, 10K, and 21K. We're setting up for the group here. So if you're interested in that, then just reach out to us here.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, both of you, for your time, and for Marie, for, I think it's quite early over there in Norway, so we really appreciate you jumping on the line. Like Magnus and Marie said, if anyone is listening or watching and is interested in participating in these events, there are obviously other places in Tokyo that run classes for Spartan and Hyrox. So it just depends on what your personal community preferences are, but like I said, we do preparation for this at Club 360, and we welcome anyone who's interested. So thank you both again, and thank you everyone for watching and listening.
Thank you.